Have you ever noticed how emotional pain can vanish for a moment when you are fully present, and then return the second your mind starts telling its story again? And have you ever wondered why you can feel something deeply without being destroyed by it, yet you still live as if every feeling is a life sentence? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to walk straight into a topic that nearly everyone carries, whether they talk about it or not: emotional pain. The kind that hides behind productivity, behind jokes, behind scrolling, behind perfectionism, behind being the responsible one, behind being the strong one. We are going to explore two ideas that can change how you relate to your inner world. First, pain is real, but suffering is often created by the mind that argues with what is here. Second, healing is not only about fixing the past or rearranging the external world, but about discovering a deeper awareness that can hold pain without turning it into identity. Let me tell you a story, because the mind understands stories. And inside every story, there is a point where you can wake up. There was a person who used to carry a small, invisible bag everywhere. No one else could see it, but the person always felt it. The bag was filled with old scenes, harsh words, unfinished goodbyes, disappointments, betrayals, embarrassments, failures, and the strange silent grief of thing that never happened but were deeply hoped for. At first, the bag felt light. The person was young and believed time would take care of everything. But as years passed, the bag became heavy. Not because the past got bigger, but because the person kept revisiting it, polishing it, replaying it, defending against it, and adding new items. Some days the bag felt manageable. The person would laugh, function, even succeed. Other days, the bag would open by itself. A smell, a song, a message left unread, a tone of voice, a memory sparked by a random street corner. Suddenly the person would feel a wave of emotion that seemed too large for the present moment. It did not match the situation. It was as if the past had leaked into now. This is one of the first clues on the path of healing. Emotional pain often has two layers. There is the direct feeling that arises now, and there is the accumulated pain body, the stored emotional charge, the old energy that has not been fully met with presence. When a present moment situation touches the old wound, the old energy surges. Then the mind tries to explain it, justify it, blame someone, blame yourself, predict doom, or demand certainty. And the story becomes gasoline. So, how do people usually deal with this bag? Some people try to pretend it is not there. They become experts at distraction. Busy schedules, noise, constant input, constant output. They are admired in society because distraction can look like ambition. They can appear high-functioning while quietly bleeding inside. Suppression works until it does not. The bag keeps filling. The body keeps score. Sleep becomes shallow. The nervous system becomes jumpy. Small problems feel like threats. They snap at loved ones and then feel ashamed. They feel guilty for not being grateful. They feel weak for having feelings. They feel trapped by their own mind. Other people stare into the bag constantly. They analyze, recount, interpret, and relive. They become archivists of hurt. They can explain exactly why they feel the way they feel, and they are not wrong. But explanation alone does not always heal, because emotional pain is not only a thought problem, it is an energy problem. And energy resolves through awareness, not only through narrative. Then there are people who swing between these two. Distract until the pain breaks through, then obsess until they are exhausted, then distract again. This loop can last years. It can shape destiny, relationships, career choices, and self-image. It can make a person feel as if they are cursed, as if life is against them, as if peace is for other people. But here is the twist in the story. One day, the person with the bag sat down in a quiet place, not to fix anything, not to perform a spiritual identity, just to stop running for a moment. And in that stillness, the person noticed something simple. The bag was heavy. Yes. The feelings were strong. Yes. The mind was loud. Yes. But there was also something else present. Something that had been present all along. The capacity to notice. The quiet awareness that could see the mind, feel the body, sense the breath, hear the sounds of the room, and remain open. This is the beginning of healing. Not the end, but the beginning. The shift from being lost inside emotion to being aware of emotion. The shift from being the story to witnessing the story. The shift from being the storm to being the space that holds the storm. No, let us be honest. When people hear this, they sometimes think it is cold. Like you are telling them to detach from their feelings. To bypass. To pretend. But real presence is the opposite of bypassing. Presence is intimate. Presence is the willingness to feel what is here without the extra violence of mental resistance. Imagine a child crying. If you tell the child, "Stop crying. You are fine," the child does not feel met. The emotion continues. But if you kneel down, make space, and say, "I am here. It is okay to feel this," the child can soften. Not because the pain was fake, but because it was allowed to move. Your inner emotional world is similar. It does not want to be argued with. It wants to be met. One of the most powerful but overlooked facts is this. Emotional pain becomes unbearable when it is combined with the thought, "I cannot handle this." The sensation itself may be intense, but the mind adds panic. The mind adds future. The mind adds identity. The mind says, "This means something about me. This proves I am broken. This proves I will never be okay. This proves I will be abandoned. This proves I am unsafe." That is suffering. Not the raw feeling, but the mental contraction around it. So healing begins when you separate these layers. You learn to feel the raw sensation directly, while not feeding the story that turns sensation into a prison. Let us go deeper into what that looks like in real life. Suppose someone you care about says something that triggers you. It could be a criticism. It could be a joke that hits an old insecurity. It could be a reminder that you are not being chosen the way you want. The moment it happens, the body reacts. Heat, tightness, heaviness, sinking, buzzing, numbness. The mind then rushes in with a script. How dare they? I always get treated like this. No one respects me. I should leave. I should attack. I should shut down. I should prove myself. I should punish them with silence. I should punish myself with shame. Now here is the practice. Instead of following the script immediately, you pause. You notice the bodily sensation. You name it awfully in your mind if that helps. Ache. You let it be there for a few breaths. You do not dramatize it. You do not deny it. You simply allow it. And then you ask a quiet question. What is aware of this sensation? That question is not meant to be answered with words. It is meant to turn your attention toward the awareness itself. The open space that can feel pain without becoming pain. The inner stillness that can include turbulence. This is where something surprising happens. The sensation may still be intense, but it becomes workable. You are no longer drowning. You are swimming. You are with the wave, not underneath it. This is also where wisdom enters. Because when you are present, you can see choice. You can choose a response instead of a reaction. Reaction is old karma. A conditioned chain. Trigger, then reflex. Response is fresh. It is conscious. It is aligned with compassion and clarity. And that is how healing reshapes destiny. Not by magic, but by interrupting the unconscious patterns that keep recreating the same pain. Now I want to speak directly to those of you who carry grief. The grief of losing someone. The grief of losing a version of your life. The grief of not becoming who you thought you would become by a certain age. The grief of childhood emotional neglect, where nothing dramatic happened on the outside, but something essential did not happen on the inside. Grief is a sacred teacher when it is met with presence. But grief becomes poison when it is trapped in story. There is a kind of grief that is clean. It feels like rain. It moves through. It softens. It honors what mattered. It reminds you of love. It may hurt, but it also opens the heart. And there is a kind of grief that becomes contaminated with resistance. Why did this happen? It should not have happened. I cannot accept this. I cannot live with this. If I accept it, it means I approve. If I stop thinking about it, it means I am betraying. If I stop suffering, it means I did not love enough. That is the mind turning grief into identity. It is the mind confusing remembrance with rumination. It is the mind building a shrine to pain and calling it loyalty. Presence offers a different kind of loyalty. Loyalty to life itself. Loyalty to the truth that love is not measured by how long you suffer, but by how deeply you can stay open without closing your heart. This is where compassion becomes the medicine. Compassion for yourself. First, not the fake positivity kind, the honest kind. The kind that says, this is hard. The kind that says, I am human. The kind that says, may I meet this moment with kindness. When compassion meets awareness, something inside starts to heal at the root. The nervous system begins to trust. The body begins to unwind. The pain body begins to lose fuel. Now, you might be thinking, but what about therapy? What about healing the past? What about changing my circumstances? Those can be important. Presence does not replace practical action. Presence makes practical action intelligent. Without presence, action often comes from fear. You try to fix your life to finally feel safe. But safety is never achieved because fear keeps moving the goalpost. You try to become perfect, but perfection never arrives because the mind is addicted to criticism. You try to control relationships, but control kills intimacy. You try to outrun loneliness, but loneliness follows because you have not learned how to be with yourself. With presence, action comes from clarity. You can change what needs changing, while accepting what cannot be changed in this moment. That acceptance is not surrendering your life. It is surrendering inner resistance. It is letting go of the war. Let us talk about letting go, because it is often misunderstood. Letting go does not mean you do not care. Letting go means you stop clinging to the illusion that reality must match your mental image for you to be okay. Letting go means you stop grabbing the river and demanding it flow backward. Letting go means you allow impermanence to be what it is. In Buddhist practice, impermanence is not a depressing idea. It is a liberating one, because if everything changes, then this pain can change too. If everything is in motion, then you are not stuck, but you need to cooperate with the truth of change. And the way you cooperate is by not freezing the experience with resistance. Resistance is often subtle. It can appear as judgment. I should not feel this. It can appear as comparison. Other people have it worse. It can appear as spiritual pride. I thought I was more evolved than this. It can appear as shame. I am weak. It can appear as fear. If I feel this fully, I will fall apart. Presence says, let us test that fear gently. Let us feel 1% more, 1 breath more, 1 moment more. And then we discover, we can feel more than we thought. We can survive feelings. We can hold them without collapsing. This is a major step in mental health. Many people live with an unconscious belief that emotions are dangerous. So they avoid. But avoidance teaches the nervous system that emotion is a threat. Then emotion becomes more threatening. It is a self-reinforcing cycle. When you meet emotion with awareness, you teach the nervous system something new. Emotion is energy. Energy can move. Awareness can hold it. The sky can hold clouds without being harmed. Now let us bring in the idea of the ego. Not as an insult, but as a structure. The ego is a pattern of identification. It says, I am my story. I am my status. I am my image. I am my past. I am my future. It is always time traveling. It rarely lives here. Emotional pain often becomes unbearable because the ego uses it as evidence. Evidence that you are unworthy. Evidence that you are unlovable. Evidence that you are unsafe. Evidence that the world is unfair. Evidence that you must fight. Evidence that you must hide. When awareness enters, you begin to see these as thoughts, not facts. You see the mechanism. You see the pattern. You see the mental habit. That seeing is wisdom. And wisdom is not just knowledge. Wisdom is a lived recognition that changes how you suffer. Wisdom is the ability to hold life as it is without closing. So what does it mean to heal emotional pain in a modern year? In a world of constant stimulation, in a culture that rewards distraction and punishes stillness, it means you learn to pause. Not once, but many times. You learn to return to the present moment, not as a slogan, but as a direct practice. You learn to feel your inner body, the subtle olivines in your hands, your chest, your belly, your feet. You learn to sense the space around you. You learn to notice the breath, not to control it, but to anchor attention in reality. Because emotional pain thrives in psychological time, the past and future. When you are fully here, the pain body has less narrative to feed on. It may still arise, but it cannot dominate in the same way. And this is where a gentle paradox appears. The more willing you are to feel the pain directly, the less it controls you. The more you stop running, the less you are chased. The more you allow, the more you heal. Now I want to tell another story, because the mind needs different angles. Imagine someone who has a room in their house that they never open. The door is always closed. They walk past it quickly. They keep the hallway lights bright so they do not have to notice the shadows around that door. They tell themselves it is fine. But the unopened room affects the whole house. The air feels stale. The floorboards creak. The nervous system stays slightly tense. One day, the person decides to open the door, but they do it slowly. They do not rush in. They stand at the threshold. They breathe. They let their eyes adjust. They notice what is there. Old furniture, dust, cobwebs, maybe some broken things, maybe a box of letters, maybe photographs, maybe a smell. This is what it is like to face emotional pain with presence. You do not charge in violently. You do not force catharsis. You do not make it dramatic. You simply open the door and allow awareness to shine. As you stand there, something else becomes clear. The room was never a monster. It was just a room. It was your avoidance that made it terrifying. It was your imagination that created dread. When you bring awareness, the pain becomes ordinary. Not trivial, but workable, human, part of the path. And that is deeply empowering. Now let us talk about relationships, because emotional pain often lies there. Many people enter relationships hoping the other person will finally solve the inner ache. The ache of not feeling enough. The ache of loneliness. The ache of emptiness. The ache of old childhood wounds. In the beginning, the relationship feels like salvation. The mind says, finally. But then reality appears. The other person has moods. The other person has limits. The other person cannot always be present. The other person sometimes triggers you. Then the pain body wakes up. It demands. It blames. It clings. It manipulates. It tests. It withdraws. It creates drama. Because drama is how the pain body gets attention. This is why presence in relationships is so powerful. When you can notice the pain body activation, you can pause. You can say internally, this is my old wound speaking. This is my fear of abandonment. This is my insecurity. This is my need for control. This is my craving for validation. And then, instead of projecting it outward, you can hold it inward with compassion, not to suppress, but to digest. This is how love becomes a practice of awakening. You stop using the other person as a mirror for your wounds, and you start using the relationship as a place to learn awareness, patience, and kindness. Now, healing also involves forgiveness, but not the fake kind, the real kind. Forgiveness is not saying what happened was okay. Forgiveness is releasing the inner grip that keeps you chained to the past. Forgiveness is refusing to let the past keep stealing the present. Sometimes forgiveness means you forgive another person. Sometimes it means you forgive yourself. Many people carry self-hatred that is disguised as responsibility. They replay mistakes endlessly, as if suffering could pay the debt. But suffering does not pay the debt. Learning pays the debt. Presence pays the debt. Making amends where possible pays the debt. And then letting go. When you forgive yourself, you are not excusing. You are releasing identification. You are saying, I did what I did from the consciousness I had then. Now I choose a higher consciousness. Now I practice. This is deeply aligned with karma. Karma is not punishment. Karma is pattern. When you practice presence, you change the pattern. When you change the pattern, the future changes. Not instantly, not magically, but steadily. Let us also address fear, because fear is the shadow behind many emotional pains. Fear of being alone, fear of failing, fear of not being special, fear of being judged, fear of not being chosen, fear of death, fear of uncertainty, fear of feeling too much. Fear is often a thought about the future combined with a bodily contraction. The mind imagines a threat. The body reacts as if the threat is here. Then the mind takes the body reaction as proof that the threat is real. It is a loop. Presence interrupts the loop. You return to the present moment and ask, what is actually happening right now? Not what might happen. Not what happened. Right now. In this moment. You are breathing. In this moment, there is a floor under you. In this moment, there may be discomfort, but the imagined catastrophe is not here. When you do this repeatedly, fear loses authority. It may still visit, but it is no longer the ruler. Now I want to speak to those of you who feel numb, because numbness is also pain. Some people cannot feel much at all. They think they are fine, but deep down they feel empty. They cannot cry. They cannot access joy. They cannot access tenderness. They live in a flat emotional landscape. Numbness is often a protective layer. At some point, feeling was too overwhelming, so the system shut down. This is not weakness. It is survival. But survival is not the same as living. Healing numbness requires the same presence, but with even more patience. You do not force feeling. You gently invite sensation. You pay attention to the subtle inner body. You notice small reaction. A slight warmth, a slight tightness, a slight softening. You are teaching the nervous system that it is safe to feel. And as feeling returns, so does vulnerability. And with vulnerability comes fear. And this is where compassion is essential. You have to be kind to the parts of you that learn it to shut down. You cannot bully them into opening. You have to befriend them. This is why inner work is not a battle. It is a reunion. Now, you might ask, what about the mind that keeps thinking? The mind that keeps looping? The mind that keeps judging? How do you calm the voice inside? The first step is to stop treating the voice as you. The voice is a function. It is a habit generator. It is a commentator. It is sometimes useful, often repetitive, and sometimes cruel. When you notice the voice, you create space. When you create space, the voice loses grip. Then you can do something simple. You can listen to the voice as if it were a radio in another room. You hear it, but you do not have to obey it. You can let it play while you remain anchored in the body. This is a practice of equanimity, the ability to be with what is without being thrown around. Equanimity is not indifference. It is inner stability. And inner stability is one of the greatest gifts you can develop, because it makes everything else possible. Compassion becomes stable. Wisdom becomes practical. Love becomes less clingy. Action becomes less reactive. Now let us bring an awakening. Because healing emotional pain is not only about feeling better, it is about seeing more clearly. Awakening is the recognition that you are not limited to the story in your mind. You are the awareness in which the story appears. You are the presence that can hold joy and sorrow. You are the space that can include the entire movie of life without being reduced to any scene. When you taste that, even briefly, something changes. Pain may still come, but it no longer defines you. You may still have difficult days, but you do not drown in meaning. You may still face loss, but you can grieve cleanly. This is not theoretical. This is a lived shift, and it has a very specific flavor. It feels like relief. It feels like returning home. It feels like a quiet yes inside, even when life is messy. Now, because this is a channel that speaks about wisdom and practice, I want to frame this in terms of the path. Because healing is a path. There is the path of noticing. You notice you are lost in thought. You notice you are reacting. You notice the pain body. You notice the story. Then there is the path of allowing. You allow the feeling to be there without resistance. You stop adding unnecessary suffering. Then there is the path of seeing. You see the mechanism. You see the pattern. You see the cause and effect. You see karma in real time. Then there is the path of choosing. You choose a response. You choose wise speech. You choose compassion. You choose patience. You choose not to harm yourself or others with unconsciousness. Then there is the path of integrating. You practice again and again until presence becomes more natural, until awareness becomes your home base. This is how you heal in a world that keeps pulling you outward. You learn to return inward. Now let me share a more grounded everyday scene. Imagine someone standing in line at a cafe. The person in front is slow. The barista makes a mistake. The line moves like a tired animal. Immediately, irritation rises. The body tightens. The mind complains. This always happens. People are so incompetent. I do not have time. This day is ruined. But then the person notices the irritation. The person feels the tightness in the chest. The person breathes. The person senses the feet on the ground. The person hears the ambient sound. The person becomes present. What happened? The external situation did not change, but the inner suffering decreased. And in that moment, the person practiced awakening. Now take that same skill and apply it to something deeper. A breakup memory, a family conflict, a self-worth wound. The same principle. Feel. Allow. Be present. Do not feed the story. Rest as awareness. At first it might feel like nothing is happening. But something is happening. You are starving the pain body of unconsciousness. You are giving it the only nourishment that truly heals it. Presence. Over time, you will notice fewer dramatic hijacks. The triggers may still happen, but the wave is smaller, or it passes quicker, or you can ride it without panic, or you can speak kindly during it. That is healing. Not the complete absence of pain, but the end of being controlled by pain. Now I want to speak to a hidden rep. Many people turn healing into another ego project. They think, I must become someone who never gets triggered. I must become someone who is always calm. I must become someone who has no negative emotion. And when they fail, they shame themselves. But real wisdom says, even the desire to be healed can become suffering when it becomes a demand. The deeper invitation is to accept this moment as it is, while gently practicing a new relationship to it. In other words, stop fighting your humanity. Learn from it. Use it. This is also where humility becomes a spiritual strength. You do not need to be perfect to be awake. You need to be honest. You need to be present. You need to return again and again. Now let us talk about the role of silence. Silence is not just the absence of sound. Inner silence is the absence of compulsive commentary. It is the space between thoughts. It is the stillness beneath thinking. When you taste inner silence, emotional pain becomes less sticky. Because the stickiness comes from thought attaching itself to emotion like glue. Silence loosens the glue. How do you touch silence? Sometimes it happens naturally when you are in nature, watching a sunset, listening to wind, sitting by water. The mind pauses. You are simply here. Sometimes it happens in meditation when you focus on the breath or the inner body and the mind quiets. Sometimes it happens in suffering when you surrender inner resistance and there is a sudden spaciousness, like the sky opening after a storm. Silence is always available in the background, like a deep ocean beneath surface waves. Now there is also the question of meaning. People often ask, why do I have this pain? Why did this happen? What is the point? Wisdom traditions often say that suffering can become a doorway to awakening. Not because suffering is good, but because suffering forces you to see the limits of the ego strategy. The ego tries to control life to be safe, but life is uncontrollable. The ego tries to avoid pain to be happy, but pain is part of life. The ego tries to secure identity to feel stable, but identity is always changing. When these strategies fail, you can either become bitter, or you can become awake. Becoming awake means you use pain as a teacher. You ask, what is this pain showing me about my attachment? My expectation, my fear, my clinging. You ask, where am I arguing with reality? You ask, what happens when I stop fighting and simply meet this moment with awareness? This is the path of transformation, and it naturally leads to compassion. Because once you know your own pain, you stop judging others as harshly. You start to see that everyone is carrying invisible bags. Now I want to bring this back to mental health in a practical sense. Presence is not a replacement for professional support when needed, but presence is a foundation that supports all healing. It helps you regulate. It helps you observe patterns. It helps you avoid impulsive harm. It helps you communicate better. It helps you sleep better. It helps you feel the difference between intuition and anxiety. It helps you experience emotions without becoming them. And perhaps most importantly, it helps you stop abandoning yourself. Many people think their deepest pain is what happened to them. But often their deepest pain is that they left themselves during what happened. They disconnected. They numbed. They judged themselves. They decided they were not worth protecting. Healing is coming back to the body, coming back to the breath, coming back to the present moment, coming back to the simple dignity of awareness. Now let me speak to the part of you that might still be skeptical. The part that says, okay, but my pain is heavy. My trauma is real. My life is complicated. Yes. And presence does not deny that. Presence does not shrink your experience. Presence enlarges your capacity. Think of it like strength training. But for the inner world, you do not lift the heaviest weight on day one. You start where you are. You practice short moments of presence. You practice noticing without judgment. You practice feeling without panic. You practice returning again and again. And gradually, your capacity grows. What once overwhelmed you becomes manageable. What once dominated you becomes a visitor. What once defined you becomes a chapter, not the whole book. This is why some teachers say, do not wait for pain to disappear before you live. Learn to live with awareness, and pain will change on its own. Now let us move toward a closing reflection, because I want to leave you with something you can carry into your day. The next time emotional pain arises, try to remember this. The pain is happening in you, but it is not all of you. The story is loud, but it is not the only sound. The past is persuasive, but it is not here. The future is uncertain, but it is not now. What is now? Now is breath. Now is sensation. Now is awareness. Now is the opportunity to respond with wisdom and compassion. If you can do that even once a day, you are changing your life. If you can do it 5 times a day, you are changing your destiny. If you can do it in the middle of a trigger, you are waking up. And if you fail, that is also part of the path. Because failing is not the opposite of awakening. Unconsciousness is. And the moment you notice you were unconscious, you are awake again. That is the kindness of awareness. It is always available. It does not hold grudges. It does not demand you be perfect. It just invites you back. Thank you for being here with me. If this episode spoke to something inside you, I want you to know you are not alone. Emotional pain is human. Healing is possible. Awakening is real, not as an abstract idea, but as a living experience of presence in the middle of life. Now I want to hear from you. In your own words, what is one pattern that keeps pulling you into suffering? And what is one tiny moment when you have felt even a little more present than usual? Share it in the comments. Your story might be the exact reminder someone else needs. And if you want more long-form videos like this, subscribe to the channel. Hit like and leave a comment so the community grows. Your support helps keep these teachings flowing, and it helps more people find the doorway back to peace. Until next time, keep practicing, keep returning, and keep trusting the quiet awareness that has been with you through every chapter.